Okay, so this is the Activity 22 practice. I wanted to go over some examples for you just to make sure that you fully understand how to use these trig ratios to help you solve for missing side lengths and angles. Number 8 on this worksheet, we're going to solve this. We're looking for a side length. So you use the angle that's printed, and with this as your perspective, you label the three sides opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is easy. It's always opposite that right angle. It'll always be opposite the right angle. So easy to identify the hypotenuse. Now you got to figure out which one's the opposite leg and adjacent leg. Opposite leg is going to be the leg that's on the complete opposite side from that angle that is printed. So this is my opposite leg. And then the adjacent leg, well, adjacent means right next to. So this is the leg that's right next to this angle. And so this would be my adjacent leg. Okay. After you label it, you need to choose what trig function you're going to use. I have, or I know, my opposite leg, but I'm searching for my adjacent leg. So you look at your formula chart and you figure out which one of the three trig functions involves these two side lengths, what you know and what you're searching for. So the trig function that involves opposite and adjacent is tangent. Okay, so this is kind of the skeleton or the outline. You have tangent of some angle equals a fraction or equals a ratio. So inside this set of parentheses is the angle measurement. So we do know that, that's 24. And then tangent is always opposite leg divided by adjacent leg. So in this example, that'd be 9 divided by x. Put your trig function over 1 when you're solving for a side length and take the cross product. We have x times tangent of 24 is equal to 9 times 1. And that's 9. Divide by the tangent of 24 on both sides because you need to get the variable by itself. So those cancel out, and on the left I am given exactly 9 divided by the tangent of 24. And so that is my exact answer. You can type that into the calculator. Make sure that your calculator is in degree mode when you type that into your calculator. And the answers are posted on my website, so you can go and check and see what the rounded answer is. Number 10. Number 10, I'm also looking for a side length. So that means I'm going to use the normal trig functions, not inverse yet. And we're going to first have to label our sides. So here's the angle that's printed. So I'm going to imagine that I'm standing there. The hypotenuse is the easiest one to identify because it's always opposite the right angle. So here we go. There's our hypotenuse. Now we got to figure out which one's the adjacent leg and which one's the opposite leg. From the angle, this is the side that's on the complete opposite side of the triangle. This is the furthest away. So that's on the opposite side. So that is our opposite leg. And then the leg that's 16 units, this is right next to the angle. So adjacent means next to. So that's my adjacent leg. Okay, we got to figure out what trig function we need to use. For this one, ironically, it's also going to be tangent because it's opposite and adjacent leg. So tangent of 41 is equal to opposite divided by adjacent. And what you're going to do, well, after you set it up, put your trig function over 1 and cross multiply. X times 1 is x, and then 16 times tangent of 41 is simply that. 16 times the tangent of 41. Well, the variable is by itself. X is 16 times tangent of 41, so you don't have to do anything to get it by itself. And then look on the answers online to find this rounded answer. Okay, number 13 on the back. We need to solve the right triangle. That means tell me everything about it. You can quickly use the triangle sum theorem. This is 37, this is 90 degrees. So the measure of angle P would be whatever's left over from that 180 degrees, which would be 53. So you can easily solve for that. Now we need to solve for our missing side lengths. I'm going to solve for the measure or the length of segment PQ first. We're going to label our sides. 22 is our hypotenuse. QR is our adjacent leg. And this is our opposite leg. And again, we're using the printed angle as our guide. This is the leg that's on the complete opposite side from our printed angle. This is the leg that's right next to our angle, and then as always the hypotenuse because it's opposite our 90-degree angle. And the 90-degree angle kind of points to it. It's saying, hey, there's your hypotenuse. It points to it. Okay, we're going to solve for the length of segment. Okay, no, we're going to do QR first. So solving for this one first. Well, I have my hypotenuse. We're going to use 22. We're going to use the angle, and I'm searching for my adjacent leg. So you need to look on in your notes or your formula chart and figure out, well, what trig function involves adjacent leg and hypotenuse? That is cosine. So cosine of some angle measurement equals, and we're going to write our ratio. Remember that the angle measurement always goes inside of the set of parentheses, so in this case that's 37 degrees. And then our ratio is going to be adjacent leg, I don't know that, QR, divided by hypotenuse, so that's 22. Okay, put your trig function over 1 and cross multiply and divide. You only do this when you're solving for a side length. You only do this when you're solving for a side length. So the length of segment QR is exactly 22 times the cosine of 37 degrees. That's your exact answer. Please look online to try to find the rounded answers. Number 18. We're trying to find one of the angle measurements. So I'm going to find the measure of angle G. You can use Pythagorean's theorem to solve for the length of segment UM. C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. But to solve for the measure of angle E and the measure of angle U, we have to use inverse functions, inverse trig functions. So when we do that, we're going to label our sides just like we've been doing. So this is the hypotenuse because our right angle's pointing at it. And then this is my opposite side, or opposite leg, because it's on the complete opposite side of the triangle. And then I've got my adjacent leg here. It's right next to it. I think I mixed up my colors. I'm going to do this over again. Adjacent leg has been in pink, so I'm going to keep that consistent. And my opposite leg has been in purple. I'm going to keep that consistent. Okay. So, when solving for the measure of an angle, we need to use the two values that are printed. That's 28 and 19. So we're still going to pick a trig function. We're still going to plug in our values. I know my hypotenuse and I know my adjacent leg. So the two trig functions that the trig function that involves those two side lengths is going to be cosine. So there's the same skeleton. I chose my trig function by looking at what I knew, at what I had. Inside the set of parentheses, you've got the measure of the angle. So we don't know it, so I'm just going to put this notation. And then your ratio, look at your formula chart, and cosine is adjacent divided by hypotenuse, which in this case would be 19 divided by 28. Okay, so mathematically, I've got to get the measure of angle E by itself. So I have to undo what's happening to it. Currently, we're taking the cosine of this angle measurement. So we need to undo that by doing the inverse operation, which is just simply inverse cosine. So in red, I'm taking the inverse cosine of both sides of the equation. So in red ink is what I'm doing to both sides. In black ink is what was already there. This is the left-hand side, and this fraction is the right-hand side. Well, what ends up happening is normal cosine and inverse cosine cancel each other out, and I'm left with just the measure of angle E. On the right hand side, I've got inverse cosine of 19 divided by 28. We're not going to mess with this. We're going to let the calculator do everything for us. And so when we type it in, make sure that you're in degree mode. And when we type this in, you're going to have to hit your second button to go into the secondary functions, and then we're working with cosine right now, so we'll hit the cosine button. Make sure you got that -1 when you're trying to find an angle measurement. We'll type in our fraction, which is 19 divided by 28, close our parentheses, and hit enter. We're going to round our angle measurements to the nearest whole number, so that would be 47. So the estimation would be 47, and that's the rounded answer. Okay, and that's a review on trigonometry.